welcome to the 7 News special edition and live coverage of the premiere musical on Broadway. I'm Anastasia Salma-Strakis and here is Samantha Armitage.
Thank you, Anastasia Salma-Strakis. Gosh, that is a mouthful. I'm really excited for tonight's show. We will be exploring the history of Broadway and its musicals and giving you an insight into its many famous actors and directors. But first, we'll head over to Sarah Cummings for a live update from Broadway in New York City.
Thank you, Sammy. I'm standing outside on the streets of Broadway, and as you can see, there are already people arriving for the premiere in 1 hour. Look, there's the Queen! Hi! Hello! Hi! Well, she must be in a hurry. It only starts in 1 hour. Anyway, now I'm right where it all began many years ago. I'm going to take you back to the beginning of the 1900s, where 42nd Street reigns as the world's entertainment capital. Oscar Hammerstein opens the Republic Theatre. Imports like Franz Lehar's The Merry Widow in 1907 had a huge influence on the Broadway musicals, but American composers George M. Cohan and Victor Herbert gave American musical comedy a distinctive sound and style. In the 1910s, Jerome Kerr, Guy Bolton and P.G. Wodehouse took it a step further by putting believable people and situations on stage. Florence Ziegfeld introduced the Follies, the ultimate stage musical. In the 1920s, American musical comedy gained worldwide influence, composing debuts of Cole Porter, Roger and Hart, the Gershwins and many others. The British introduced several revues and multi-talented Noel Coward. Showboat in 1927 was written by Kern and Oscar Hammerstein II and was the most lasting hit in the 1920s. Then, in the 1930s, light-hearted musical comedy reached its creative peak during and after the Great Depression. Gershwin's Of Thee I Sing in 1931 was the first musical ever to win the Pulitzer Prize for drama. Roger and Hart and Cole Porter contributed many lasting shows and hit songs. The 1940s started out with the usual musical comedies, but Roger and Hart's Pal Joey, Will and Gershwin's Lady in the Dark opened the way for more realistic musicals. Roger and Hammerstein's Oklahoma in 1943 used every song and dance to develop the characters and plot, becoming the first fully musical integrated play. Musicals would never be the same after this, but the composers Irving Berlin and Cole Porter rose to the occasion and adapted to integrated musical style. In the 1950s, the music of Broadway was popular, and it was very popular especially in the Western world. Classic hit musicals were produced every season and were awaited and celebrated by the general public. The unforgettable hits of the time were The King and I, My Fair Lady, Gypsy, and dozens more. These musicals were shaped by 3 key elements. They were the composers, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Loesser, and Burstein. The directors, George Abbott, Jerome Robbing, and Bob Fosse. Then the female stars, Gwen Verdon, Mary Martin, and Ethel Merman. Well, that's all from me for now, and I'll see you in half an hour. Back to you, Anastasia Salma-Strakis.
Thanks, Sarah, and welcome back. Well, that sure does look exciting. But even more exciting is tonight's special segment of What's That Musical? I'm going to spin the wheel, and the colour I land on will correspond with a question category. Sam will be our first contestant. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
And the cameraman, Gary, will be our second contestant. Are you ready, Samantha?
I sure am.
That's great. Let's play. Red. Great. This is a Broadway history question. What was the longest running musical in the 1970s?
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
A chorus line.
Ting!
That is correct. Next question. Red again. Well, it's another history question. Now we'll go back even further. What was the first ever musical to win the Pulitzer Prize for drama?
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Anything Goes, 1934.
Bam bow.
Incorrect. The correct answer is Gershwin's Of Thee I Sing, 1931.
I knew it.
Yes. Now our next contestant, Gary, the cameraman, will be up next. Welcome, Gary.
It's nice to be here.
Great. Well, let's play. Green. The category is famous Broadway directors. Which famous director directed On Your Toes, 1936?
Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock.
Rodgers and Hart.
Ting!
That is correct. Well, that's all we have time for, as we have to head back over to Sarah for another live update as we get closer to the opening.
Hello again, Australia! As you can see, it's getting hectic as here. People like Julia Gillard and Justin Bieber are arriving. I thought I'd give you a bit of history on what Broadway was like in the 60s, 70s and 80s, compared to even earlier eras. During the 1960s, musicals such as Oliver, Fiddler on the Roof and Cabaret opened up on Broadway, bringing a new dimension. The longest running musical in the 1960s was a classic Fiddler on the Roof. The 1960s saw the beginning of rock and roll style, and this is when the Vietnam War was going on, and it influenced the feel on Broadway. Another great musical created in that time was Hair in 1968, which epitomised the dramatic change seen throughout the 60s. The 1970s saw some fantastic rock musicals such as Grease and The Wiz, introducing a new sort of musical with a different rock type of music. The longest running musical in the 1970s was A Chorus Line, which ran into the 80s. Stephen Sondheim was a hit with Company in the 70s as it explores the relationships of marriage. The 1980s saw the beginning of the hit comedy musical 42nd Street, as well as Cats, which reshaped the musical landscape on Broadway. Some say that the 80s was the last of the great Broadway season. There were many other hit musicals in the 80s from directors like Stephen Sondheim and David Shires, such as Sunday in the Park with George and Baby. Well, that's all from me. But firstly, Voldemort, what are you thinking about this exciting premiere?
I'm very excited. Since my recent death, I've had to go into hiding, so it's nice to be able to come out onto the cover of the night.
Well, isn't this a lovely atmosphere? That's all from me. Now back to Anastasia Salmastrakis.
We're back. Thanks again, Sarah. Gosh, it's really heating up on Broadway, isn't it? Feels like the premiere of Grease back in the 60s. Well, now I'm going to have a special interview with Anthony Warlow. And we're going to have a chat about Broadway in the modern times. How's Broadway been in the past few decades, Anthony?
Good, very good. Lots of progress. Yes, lots of progress. Broadway musicals in 1990 were identified by their notable effects. For example, the falling chandelier in The Phantom of the Opera and the landing helicopter in Miss Saigon. Most of the Broadway musicals in this time were based on novels or other works on literature. Musicals weren't winning the public as they were very expensive, and costs were so high that even long-running musicals like Grace for You and Sunset Boulevard were unable to make a profit. As the 20th century ended, the musical theatres were in an unclear state and were relying on repeated numbers like 40 and stage versions of old movies like Footloose and Saturday Night Fever. Starting in the year 2000, the new rebirth of American musical comedies took Broadway by surprise, like The Producers, Urinetown, Thoroughly Modern Millie and Hairspray. Funny, melodic and inventively staged, these hit shows offered new hope for the genre.
So it's a bit different to how it was in the past, where opera was the main genre, and any special effects were unheard of.
Well, some things have stayed the same, but yes, lots have changed. It's as though the producers feel the need to show where all their money is going by having elaborate sets, costumes and effects, but the main point of telling a story through music is still the same.
And how does the fact that things have changed so much make you feel?
Mostly sad. Yes, sad. Black like your soul. Like we are spiraling into a never-ending tunnel of doom.
Well, stop. I think we've heard enough for tonight. How about we head back over to Sarah, as we are a couple of minutes away from the long-awaited premiere.
Thanks, Anastasia Salmastrakis. We are now minutes out and everyone's inside, and we're all just waiting for the moment where we're told that it has begun. This one is going to be a real tearjerker. 7 News is proud to have covered many recent musical premieres in the last decade, such as The Addams Family, Wicked, Mamma Mia and Mary Poppins, and this is no different.
It has now begun.
Well, this is Sarah Cummings reporting live from Broadway. It's now time for me to head home after this memorable night. I'll see you back in the studio, Anastasia Salmastrakis and Samantha Armitage. Thank you.
such a bitch. I can't believe I just said bitch on this school thing.
I don't really like her, like, I don't really feel like, I think we're wrong. Thank you, Sarah. We'll see you soon. I'm Anastasia Salmastrakis.
And I'm Samantha Armitage.
This is 7 News with a special coverage of the premiere of the hit new musical. Thank you and
And
good
good
night.
night.